You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to the end of the week, you guys. It is Friday, and we got a sound effect for that. Hit it, man. Friday! Yes, it is. All right. Welcome to the end of the week. We'll get you all the way to go home time here on a Friday afternoon. And glad you guys are with us and pushing the buttons so ably on the board. JP, how you doing, bud?
Man, I'm great today. It's a great day today.
Are you basking in the warm afterglow of an Alabama win?
Not just an Alabama win, the most satisfying of Alabama wins.
Did you wear a maroon shirt today for that very reason?
I almost wore my old school Bama logo shirt, but, I wore Bama yesterday, so I had to give you a little break.
We have to have a little decorum in the studio right here.
A little bit of Bama break for you from the Peril-wise.
Nice. Nice. All right. Well, listen, speaking of which, you guys all know that JP is truly a sports guy. He's also, by the way, the podcast host for the Out of Right Field podcast about sports and culture. And so today, halfway through hour number 2, as always on Fridays, we'll do some JP on sports. So that'll be coming up. And then I got a whole triple dipper just filled up with stuff. So hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. First out the gate, the deportation machinations. Y'all, have you ever seen anything like this? I mean, it's such a relief, too, I'll be honest. It is such a relief to see that after 4 years, even though we got a lot of catching up to do, but after 4 years, we have a concerted effort to flush away all the illegals who have been bum rushing our border, to include the criminals who came over here with evil intent. So number 1 on the Triple Dipper is deportation machinations, to include one that happened right here in Alabama. We'll talk about that. Number 2 on the Triple Dipper, common sense is common again. I kept finding stories going, well, it's amazing we have to have an order for that. Or it's amazing we have to even have legislation for that. Or it's amazing that even happened before. Because you know why? Because it's common sense. Well, it's like common sense is being made common again, and I'm loving that. So I got a series of stories we'll talk about in that regard. Stand by for number 2 on the Triple Dipper, common sense is common again. And then number 3, selective racism. What does that mean? That means you're only racist when it helps you. That means you're only racist as to certain people, certain demographics, certain, needs you have to raise money for your agenda. Selective racism. Yeah, I can tell you about a few things. And oh, by the way, I got some audio to go with it, and it's pretty fun. All right, listen, I got a whole lot of stuff to cover on the show today, so we'll jump right in here momentarily. Let me do the Rightside Way opening monologue with you. And I'll remind you guys that attorney Stan McDonald, he is indeed the daily sponsor of the Rightside Way. Stan McDonald, partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee, and sponsor daily of the Rightside Way. I'll tell you more about him in a minute. All right, look, I've been watching, I know you have too, I've been watching lately as the race baiters and the charlatans have seen their storylines begin to unravel. I mean, it's really unraveling as fast as the lies that they spread. By the way, I'm a white guy. Can I say that? I did. I'm a white guy, and I'm allowed to have an opinion on this. Look, over the past 5 years, we have watched the screaming leftists tell us that racism permeates every aspect of this wonderful society that we all live in. I mean, they will tell us that we are not only racist, but that we're even born racist. We're also born privileged or maybe even unprivileged. And then they swoop in to protect us from ourselves because they and only they can defeat the specter of racism by revising history to make sure we know how racist we really are. They'll tear down monuments and statues that could have been, seen in their version of history to promote racism. Never mind that the history they rely on is the one they just rewrote. They're going to rename streets and military bases every time they get a chance, promote reverse discrimination by doing away with merit. And so far, they were successful, but we're turning back the page on that. Merit-based hiring and promotion is coming back. Well, the left will attempt also to enact curriculums in schools containing things like critical race theory, or the New York Times sponsored historical revision known as the 1619 Project. The hypocrisy of race baiters and charlatans really knows no bounds. Like when Black Lives Matter as an organization will tell you that you're racist if you dare say all lives matter, at the same time failing to account for the millions that flooded into their coffers that we now learn was spent buying luxury mansions. Or how about the Southern Poverty Law Center, based right here in Montgomery, Alabama, who allegedly stands for freedom from oppression, but they had an internal battle most recently when massive claims of harassment by their own staff were exposed. But like I said, the leftist anger industrial complex division of racism is falling apart right before our very eyes. President Trump issued 2 executive orders in the last few days. 2 executive orders that are working to undo the left-wing racism lies. The first is one that I'll describe to you. It was signed last night. President Trump has now ordered national parks and museums who receive federal funds to restore all monuments and exhibits that were torn down or removed during the left's great history purge of the past few years. Statues of Thomas Jefferson and Christopher Columbus, even inexplicably at times Abraham Lincoln, were all destroyed or removed or warehoused. They are ordered to go back in now. The other was the Trump executive order earlier in the week that I told you about, where he was issuing an order designed to preserve the integrity of voting in America by requiring proof of citizenship, which, by the way, is going to, by necessity, require proof of ID. But that's racist, said all the liberal white Karens in academia. Look, later in the show, I'm going to play a montage for you of white folks and black folks all being interviewed about the insulting manner in which liberal race baiters claim that skin color makes it hard to get an ID. Come on. Trump knows it ain't hard. All God's children know it ain't hard. But liberal race baiters and charlatans need you to believe that it's too hard to get an ID because, you know, racism. But let me clear the air on something. Like I said earlier, I'm a white guy. Born that way. There's no cultural appropriation. It's real. I'm a white guy. Mom and Dad were both white, so the natural order of things is that I would be too. And Scripture, by the way, tells me that I was fearfully and wonderfully made and that God knew me even as he knit me together in my mother's womb. So me being a white guy apparently was part of God's plan, the same as anyone else who was born white, black, Asian, Hispanic, Martian, whatever. But the mere fact that God saw fit in his infinite wisdom for me to be born white does not in any way negate my right or ability to form an opinion about matters of racism. Look, I'm a man, but I have a right and an ability to form an opinion about abortion. I'm an American, but I've got a right and an ability to form an opinion about foreign policy. I'm not personally physically challenged or having special needs, but I helped to pass laws that dealt with those issues because, you know what, sometimes we're allowed to speak into things that we might not have walked in. My point is that before I go any further in my commentary here, we need to all understand debate means debate. Debate does not mean shouting someone down or discarding their opinions because they haven't walked a mile in your shoes. So yeah, I'm white, but I also have a brain. I also know where I am. I know where I came from. Therefore, I can talk about racism, and so can any of you. I have actual rights, and so do you. But that's the goal, though, of left-wing race baiters and charlatans. You are first going to be disabused of the ill-conceived notion that you are worthy to have an opinion on any matter, especially one of race, if you have not or are not of the demographic that their champion is being oppressed. The problem with that line of thinking, though, is it creates a circular argument. It's one in which they wind up only talking amongst themselves. They get inside their own bubble. Nobody else is allowed to speak, so only they can speak. But they only feed off each other. Therefore, they shut down other discussion because, you don't like to deal with someone who looks and disallows reasons and discourse. So, yeah, circular firing squad is what it becomes, a predetermined outcome. It allows them to engage in revisionism. It creates a festering of the perceived wounds of the grievance because there's no healing that can ever happen in a circular gripe session, and yet that's what the race baiters want. They want everybody else to go away and let them have their own say. You can't have a say because you don't understand. They want societal wounds. Race baiters, they want festering, oozing, sucking racial chest wounds right in the heart of our society because that's how they make their money, their notoriety, and their power. Look, I have 2 beautiful grandchildren now. We raised our kids and they're wonderful adults And now I have these two beautiful grandchildren who are both under the age of 6. And there's an innocence that I'm reminded of every time I see them. The world is full of wonder. There's potential friends on every playground. And while I believe that they are the best ones, because they're my grandkids, so naturally I believe they're the best ones, they are also not so unique in their perspectives of the world. You see, despite what race baiters and charlatans would have us to believe, children like my grands, and all the rest of them, by the way, are not born with racist tendencies. It's a learned behavior. They are not born as an oppressor or an oppressed by virtue of their skin color. They just aren't. It defies logic and reason, and anyone who has held a small child knows that line of thinking is not only wrong, it's just evil. I've also, by the way, lived and worked and served all over the world. At least 7 foreign countries and 12 of our United States. I've seen oppressive governments and I've seen the effects they can have, and this is not that. Do I get mad at various aspects of governance and whacked out public policy? Sure, every single day. But I wouldn't trade where I live or the systems of governance we have for anything. And knowing what I know, and having seen what I've seen, I am convinced that the race baiters and the charlatans who preach the hateful rhetoric that this great nation is somehow systemically racist, or that white supremacy is the gravest, most prolific threat to our society, and that the sins of the past must somehow by necessity be thrust upon the generations of the present like some great burden that we have to carry around, well, I'm not having it. And I'm a white guy, but I can still have that opinion. And my opinion is that while racism may still exist, certainly, we are not racist as a people. I also believe, by the way, it is necessary to teach the past, the actual past. There's no need to gloss it over. The good, the bad, and the ugly. I was taught about slavery in school growing up. I was taught by my parents that racism was wrong and that prejudice creates division. But it is possible to teach the wrongs of history with accuracy while not also accusing the current generation of somehow being complicit with our past. You see, no child of modern America has ever owned a slave or been a slave, but we can still teach the wrongs of slavery. The world should know about the march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. The world should know who Bull Connor was, but the children of the 21st century are not modern Bull Connors. I believe that Alabama sits squarely in the middle of the world history. We have been both the seat of the Confederacy and the centerpiece of the modern civil rights movement. We have had governors who stood in the door of the schoolhouse, and we've had governors who flung wide the gates to move us away from that era. So you teach it all. You teach it all. No skew and no spew. But understand this. When we accept the fact that a white guy can have an opinion about racism, when we accept the fact that bad things did happen in the past, but that not all things are bad, when we push back on the notion that children are somehow born racist, when we push back on the notion that any of these things are real, the race baiters and charlatans, they're going to scream and they're going to writhe in pain, they're going to lash out because that's what they do. They make noise, they cause division, it's all they do. Hateful thoughts left unabated will breed hateful rhetoric, which left unchallenged leads to hateful action, which left unchecked causes hateful division. So yeah, I'm a white guy, and I can say that I believe racism is wrong. From both sides of the argument, it's wrong. And the sooner that the race baiters and the charlatans realize that we're not going to be cowed down by their endless frizzies, the better off we're all going to be. This is not a systemically racist nation. It is not. Race baiters. I, for one, am not taking the bait. And that's a wrap for the Right Side Way. JP, did you know I was white?
I kind of connected the dots there. Yeah.
It's true. Listen, anybody out there who says you're not allowed to have an opinion, they've forgotten where they live. Because the same country they want to claim denies rights, they would be denying your rights to have freedom of speech just by virtue of saying you not have a right to speak. Listen, they get in their circular firing squads. That's all they do is gripe among themselves. The bottom line is we can speak into the issue too. And I will tell you right now, this country is wonderful. And we are not a systemically racist nation. Let's put those statues back up. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, just plain right. Like, man, making common sense like a superpower. All right, so we got plenty to talk about today. And before I do that, I got to tell you about attorney Stan McDonald. So Stan McDonald, friend of mine, I know him personally. I think the world of him. Stan McDonald, he's a partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee, a 30-year veteran in the practice of law in North Alabama. And listen, I'm going to tell you right now, y'all, and I say this with all sincerity, Stan McDonald has been in the mix, in the fray, in the trenches on the politics and policies that right side ruffians care about for years. So I would say, yeah, he's one of us. He's a right side ruffian himself. Attorney Stan McDonald, he has represented his clients in literally thousands of real estate transactions over the years. I mean, he can represent you in any local, state, or federal court, but I want to say it this way. Stan McDonald, if he's on your side, you're going to have no greater friend. Likewise, your adversaries would have no greater foe. So yeah, attorney Stan McDonald, if you need an attorney in North Alabama, I'm going to give you his number. You ready? Attorney Stan McDonald, the law firm of Wilmer and Lee. He's an America First family man. Here's his phone number, 256-479-3020. That's Stan McDonald, 256-479-3020. And tell him you heard about it on Rightside Radio. All right, I feel smooth today. You ready? No representation made. The quality of legal service be informed is greater than the quality of legal service for more than lawyers.
That's one of your better ones yet.
I even had a little tone inflection on that one.
I give that like a 9-1 right there.
Wow.
That's pretty good.
All right. The Russian judge says 9.1. All right.
The Russian judge.
Well, you are wearing maroon. It's rather communist color. You know that, don't you?
Yeah.
I just have to point that out. Text lines are open, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text it or call it. Same number for both. A bunch of y'all already have. Let me see what I got. Scott from Ardmore says, Phil, howdy, A triple plus on the monologue, sir. One question I have is, when did America change from being the land of opportunity, where a person's work ethic and their knowledge, skills, and abilities became discounted, and victimhood and false oppression became the main norm in our society? I would say right around November the 6th of 2020. Just saying.
I would go back a little further.
There were days.
2008-ish.
But it became the official policy.
Yeah. I'd say 2008 happened for 2020 to happen.
You know, and the Obama-Biden administration really pushed that narrative. But I think more than anything, the most current Biden administration went so much further. And a part of that was because it's almost as if there were no more inhibitions, that anything goes. What do you want? I don't know. I want fake ladies competing in women's sports. Okay. I want drag queens to sing to children like in while they're wearing G-strings. All right.
And now they can't backtrack on it, because then they're gonna think that they're transphobic, racist. You know,
exactly right.
They've dug their own hole, and they're.
Yeah, and I want to make sure that you're not allowed to say all lives matter, but you do have to say Black Lives Matter, because that's, hey, that's racist. It's just, the least racist statement you could say is all lives matter.
But the left says it's racist, so.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because, racism. All right, more on this. I got plenty more on this. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Man. Covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. Woo. I mean, it goes from like Huntsville back over to Chattanooga and from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden, all the way down to the loveliest little town on the plains we like to call Auburn, stretching across the border to what we now like to call Fort Benning again. And then even big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. All right, lots of doings here at Rightside Media. We got a lot of things going on, y'all. I cannot even begin to describe to you. Just by the way, Rightside Radio that you're listening to right now is only one part of the overall productions here at Rightside Media, the parent company. Rightside Media's got a ton of podcasting going on, and the latest edition of Right Click came out today. So yeah, we got 5 video podcasts that come out every single week on different days. I take it back. One of them's every other week, but the rest of them come out every week. So we have the Controversial Mom with Emily Jones, comes out on Sundays. We have Out of Right Field doing sports and culture with JP on Mondays. We got me doing Right Philosophy, which is a lot like my monologues. I do it from my house on Wednesdays. And then we got Liberty Minute with former Navy SEAL Jared Hudson on Thursdays. And then Right Click comes out on Fridays. There's a lot going on around here. Oh, by the way, we got a radio show. And y'all are awesome.
Radio show every day.
Radio show every single day. All right. I got to get a few more text messages because y'all are, I love it. I love it when I come in on Friday wondering if anybody's out there. Oh, no, they're out there. John G. from Huntsville says, voter ID is a fake argument. Anybody who shows up to polls to vote already used their ID to register to vote. Thank you. Thank you very much. You are correct, sir. Alex Mathens just says, preach, Phil. Preach in all caps, by the way. That's like a double preach.
Yell preach.
It's like yell preach. What do we got that here? Jeff from Indiana says, Phil, you're wrong on this. The country is systemically racist because the government made Alabama change its district lines based solely upon race. So, yes, it's systemically racist towards Caucasians. Oh, now, Jeff. You know. No. No, that is a weird deal. You're right. I mean, that's one of the things that we actually said. That was one of the arguments, Jeff, when we, and I wasn't there for this one, but I was there for 2 other challenged redraws of the lines during my tenure in the Senate. But, man, I mean, we literally told them, you said we can't consider race. Well, you didn't consider enough race, but you said we couldn't consider race. Well, you need to consider it. But I thought you said we couldn't do that. And that's, it, anyway, that one is actually still up on appeal. We'll see how it goes. John from Huntsville, Phil, spectacular monologue. Also, JP, the reason why Alabama won so easily last night and set a record for the most 3-pointers is because Charles Barkley, before the game, predicted that BYU would win.
That makes sense. Yeah, the Charles Barkley curse is real.
Yes. He said he also predicted Duke would lose to Arizona, which means the Charles Barkley curse is real. He says that. Mm-hmm. By the way, he said I did some investigation. SpongeBob is asexual and definitely not gay, and the creator of the show said so himself.
Thank you. Thank you.
But he's asexual, so what is that?
He's a sponge.
So is that like he uses they, them pronouns?
No,
what's happening now?
He uses SpongeBob pronouns. That's his name. SpongeBob.
But he's Bob.
Well, I mean, I consider Bob sort of gender neutral.
He's a
name,
dude sponge.
Yeah.
There are no girls named Bob.
But at the same time, he is a sponge, so we're entering a whole lane here.
Why are we arguing
I don't know.
This most inane of arguments. Scott from Ardmore says, Phil, howdy. A triple plus on the monologue, sir. One question I have. Oh, we already read that one. I did read that one. Okay.
I think we're almost.
It was so good, I wanted to read it twice.
I think we're all caught up except Robert from Athens.
Robert from Athens. Dear Colonel Phil, the psyop used by the Democrat Party is identical to Satan's. If I can get you to believe a lie, you're wide open to vice. And if your vice will ruin you. Democrats seek the destruction of human beings because they gain. Identical to Satan. Wow. Wow. Robert. Wow. Okay. I did have something from Dave from Capshaw.
I saw this earlier.
Babylon Bee. It's off topic, but it has a picture of Trump, and it says, Trump leaves the presidency to become an even more powerful district court judge. Babylon Bee is awesome. All right, listen, we're going to jump on into the first dipper here, the deportation machinations. And you guys, listen, in case you're wondering, yes, it's right here in our backyard. So you're familiar with the fact that we have this, it's like 30 years old, really, this graduate student named Mahmoud Khalil who was arrested by ICE up at Columbia University in New York. Mahmoud Khalil, a known agitator, he was the leader of most of the protests that took over the campus at times, took over buildings, caused all kinds of stir, supported Palestinian terrorists, called for the death to Israel. So Mahmoud Khalil is now waiting on deportation. Of course, it's being litigated, but there it is. Just so you know, 1819 News reports as of this morning, Department of Homeland Security apprehended a University of Alabama doctoral student from Iran who they say, quote, posed significant national security concerns. That's all we really know. The guy's name is Alireza Daroudi. Alireza Daroudi was a mechanical engineering doctoral student from Iran. And he's at the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa. And ICE detained him this week. Let's see, what today is this? Friday? It's Friday. Why haven't you been asking that? But they detained him apparently on Tuesday. And all they will say about it at this point is this individual posed significant national security concerns. And there's no elaboration. You looked it up before the show too. Nothing else you could find?
I mean, the only other thing I saw worth of note was that there's no reason to believe he's participated in any pro-Palestinian protests. That's the only thing I've seen.
What news source said that?
AO.com, of course.
Oh, well, for the love of God.
Yeah.
AO.com. Why don't you just go ahead and call his lawyer and get the opinion, you know?
So those are the only two statements I've seen out there.
Oh, wow. Okay. Hey, listen, I'm going to be calling for audio one here in just a moment. So with regards to the deportation of students who are raising Cain on campuses here in the U.S., I got a piece from NBC News. And listen, y'all, I pulled a couple of articles today specifically to get the liberal viewpoint. Whew. Brace yourselves. Like, I love it when I looked at this, and this is NBC News. And apparently it took 1, 2, 3, 4. It took 4 reporters to draft this one story. Dateline yesterday. Trump takes aim at foreign-born college students with 300 visas revoked. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said Thursday, NBC News, the State Department has revoked 300 or more student visas, targeting foreign-born students whose main transgression seems to be activism. Why are they saying it like that? Their main transgression seems to be, activism.
Because their exaggerative tone makes it seem a lot worse than it is. Just like the what did they say? Trump aimed at these students. It's like the way they say things goes a long way.
How about this? You ready? Rubio warned that the administration was looking out for, quote, these lunatics. Around the country, scholars have been picked up, in some cases by masked immigration agents. Wait a minute. Hang on a second. Scholars have been picked up. They're scholars. Let's make sure we categorize them specifically. I don't want you to misunderstand. These people are scholars. I'm not sure what qualifies as a scholar. I read a book. Do I get to be a scholar?
Well,
I have been to the Rightside Institute. Do I qualify for being a scholar?
I guess. I mean, you can identify as anything you want nowadays. So.
The Rightside Institute for Conservative Learning has granted me the authority to speak as a scholar.
Top student.
Yes, I am indeed the Dean Emeritus at the Rightside Institute. I think I'm coining something here, by the way. Scholars have been picked up, in some cases, by masked immigration agents. Why'd they put masked? Why'd they say that? And by the way, what do they substantiate that with? Because we don't usually see our people go in with masks unless they're going in wearing, like, riot gear.
To make it seem extreme.
When we watch these protesters on the campus, what do we often see them do?
Masked up.
Wearing masks. So they don't ever point that out.
No.
But apparently the people who do the arresting, oh, by the way, held in detention centers sometimes 1,000 miles from their homes with little warning, often with few details about why they're even being detained. They know why they're being detained.
Mm-hmm. You just don't know.
And they have to say so by law. When they arrest you, they tell you what you're being charged with. Anyway. It goes on to make some other apologetic statements, but I will say this. It did point out a couple things that were factual. Trump's border czar Tom Homan says, NBC News, has repeatedly said the administration's deportation policy is worst first, meaning they're going for the criminals. Prioritizing removing people with criminal records or people suspected of being national security threats. According to DHS security data, there's at least 400,000 non-citizens convicted of other crimes here in the United States. And they have so far sent several hundred to maximum security prisons in El Salvador, alleging that they had gang ties. So Marco Rubio was asked about this the other day. I'm going to call for clip one. What's the length of that? It's like 2 minutes, right? I think we can get that in. Let's go ahead and do this. So this is Senator Marco Rubio. I pulled this off of C-SPAN, I believe. I pulled this off C-SPAN. Him answering a reporter who wants to know what about these students who are being arrested. And listen to what he had to say. Which Rubio is a great wordsmith. He's a great presenter. He's a great one for dealing with this thing straight up. And here he goes.
Mr. Secretary, a Turkish student in Boston was detained and handcuffed on the street by plainclothes agents. A year ago, she wrote an opinion piece about the Gaza war. Could you help us understand what the specific action she took led to her visa being revoked?
All right, stop.
Yeah. And what was your...
A year ago, she wrote something. Can you tell us why she was arrested? Okay, the implication there was the only thing we can find that she's ever done wrong is write something you don't like. It's more than that. Go ahead.
State Department's role in that process.
We revoked her visa. It's an F1 visa, I believe. We revoked it, and here's why. And I'll say it again. I said it everywhere. Let me be abundantly clear, okay? If you go apply for a visa right now, anywhere in the world, let me just send this message out. If you apply for a visa to enter the United States and be a student, and you tell us that the reason why you're coming to the United States is not just because you want to write op-eds, but because you want to participate in movements that are involved in doing things like vandalizing universities, harassing students, taking over buildings, creating a ruckus, we're not going to give you a visa. If you lie to us and get a visa and then enter the United States and with that visa participate in that sort of activity, we're going to take away your visa. And once you've lost your visa, you're no longer legally in the United States, and we have a right, like every country in the world has a right, to remove you from our country. So it's just that simple. I think it's crazy. I think it's stupid for any country in the world to welcome people into their country that are going to go to your universities as visitors. They're visitors. And say, I'm going to your universities to start a riot. I'm going to your universities to take over a library and harass people. I don't care what movement you're involved in. Why would any country in the world allow people to come and disrupt? Now, we gave you a visa to come and study and get a degree, not to become a social activist that tears up our university campuses. And if we've given you a visa and then you decide to do that, we're going to take it away. I encourage every country to do that, by the way, because I think it's crazy to invite students into your country that are coming onto your campus and destabilizing it. We're just not going to have it. So we'll revoke your visa, and once your visa is revoked, you're illegally in the country and you have to leave. Every country in the world has a right to decide who comes in as a visitor and who doesn't. If you invite me into your home because you say, I want to come to your house for dinner, and I go to your house and I start putting mud on your couch and spray painting your kitchen, I bet you're going to kick me out. Well, we're going to do the same thing if you come into the United States as a visitor and create a ruckus for us. We don't want it. We don't want it in our country. Go back and do it in your country. But you're not going to do it in our country.
There you go. Man, has there ever been a more clear representation of the common sense approach to this? And by the way, I love doing that. That's one of the things I often say is when you look at something like, for instance, criminal activity, I like to break it down to the lowest common denominator, like putting it to a position like he just did with, if you invited me into your house and next thing you know, I'm kicking mud on your couch and spray painting your kitchen, you're going to ask me to leave. I do that all the time. I'll tell people it's about things like, if you see something happening at your neighbor's house and the child is being beaten in the yard, are you going to sit there and do nothing? Or are you going to go say something? And the reality is, what he just did was he took it all the way down to the lowest level. Everybody can identify with the idea of what it'd be like to have your house being torn up by somebody. Well, let's take it up on the macro level now. This is our house. This is our house. And we are called to protect this house. And if there is someone who is coming here with evil intent to do nothing like what they said they were coming to do, like he said, if you told us you were coming here to get a degree, then come study, get your degree, and go home and make your country better. But don't come here and do the things we've been seeing and expect that we're going to go, oh, that's okay. You're welcome to do it. Why? Because, I don't know, we just think it's cool to come to our country and tear stuff up. I'm loving the idea that we have a common sense administration again. My God, where's it been? Let's take a break, JP. I need to loosen myself up again. I'm just going to, no more caffeine for me. I guess no more Marco Rubio for me right now either. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just saving the world one soundbite at a time. All right, so the deportation stuff, this is big doings. And keep in mind, what we're watching is something that we have not seen in a number of years. Now, I'm not going to say that the Biden administration didn't deport anybody, because they did. But, they didn't go at it. And they didn't have a concerted effort. And in fact, their real concerted effort was to make sure that people could come in, as opposed to those, they spent more time shipping people around the nation after processing them into the open border than they ever did trying to get people out, ever. In fact, they kept coming up with new ways to let them in. It was nuts. Like the CHNV, the CHNV visa, what was that, Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, Venezuela. If you lived in one of those four countries, all you had to do was go, I'm scared. And they'd say, okay, here's a plane ticket. And they'd fly you in. The CHNV visa was just recently revoked by the Trump administration. Praise God. I mean, we're just, and by the way, let me say this. I am not above the idea of people coming here to better their lives. I think it's fair to say the United States is still the shining light. It's still the city on a hill. It's still the place where anything can happen in a good way. But when you water down society, when you move the third world to the first world, what do you get? Do you get more first world? No. When you import massive quantities of people who are trying to escape the third world, they come here and they bring the third world with them, and you do all you can to upgrade them, and you give them everything they. But you know what? At some point, all you've done too is actually begin to lower the standards of society, because so many people came here that were not already assimilated, and the Biden administration had no intent of helping them assimilate. Gone are the standards for, pressing people towards the idea of citizenship and what it would mean to be a citizen of the nation. And, here now Trump's declaring the national language. Wow. But all the said and done, we haven't seen that in a while. There was no effort on the part of the Biden administration. When we come back from this break, I'm going to switch gears on this. The deportation machinations are not just, these radical green card carriers that are coming to our campuses with intent to be protesters and support our enemies. Let's also talk about the criminals, the gang leaders, the ones they've been rounding up. And what's the latest on whether they can, be sent down to, El Salvador's Secot prison? There's a whole lot to be said for the way the Trump administration is handling this in a variety of ways. Number one, they're getting it done. But number two, they're doing it, and they're making the world aware they're doing it, which, by the way, puts everybody on notice. And so self-deportations are beginning to happen. And I want to make sure y'all are clear. I am not above the idea of people coming here the correct way. I have naturalized citizens in my family that I dearly love, and I cannot imagine them not being here. But the truth of the matter is, when you open the borders and you let people flood in by the millions unchecked, and then just go, y'all hang out, we'll give you free stuff, what do you think's going to happen? There's no effort at assimilation. There's no effort at trying to better the country. They literally begin to pull the country in the opposite direction. And that's where we've been. And we're going to talk about the criminal element that's been a part of that when I get back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, sometimes the international, and oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 2 on a Friday. It is indeed. Listen, I'm in Dipper number 1 now, the deportation machinations, and just so you know, JP just pointed out to me, thank you JP, good catch, that the judge, Boasberg, who has become infamous as he tries to deny the Trump administration's ability to deport criminal gang elements to Venezuelan or to El Salvador in prisons. He has now extended the moratorium on this, the injunction. So story broke just in the last 45 minutes. Got it here on Fox News. The judges, or judges plural because there's more than one case, judges extend orders against deportation flights, including wartime acts on violent Venezuelan gang members. So yeah, this is Judge Boasberg again. This is the one that involves the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. Judge Boasberg has now extended his moratorium, or his injunction, if you will, through April 12th, so 2 more weeks. And you know, part of that's because he's not going to back off his order, and the original order was due to expire, but the appellate process is still ongoing. So on the one hand, I get it. On the other, it's still maddening. But then also today, in a separate ruling, a federal judge in Boston actually blocked the deportation of migrants to countries where it says they have no existing relationship. In other words, if you are from Central America and you are being shipped out to El Salvador, then we may have a problem. Like if you're a, I don't know, let's pick one. If you're a Venezuelan gang member being shipped to El Salvador, to their prison, this judge says, no, you can't do that. Okay, I guess.
Even if they're wanted by El Salvador?
You know, I got nothing for you. Because it's hard keeping up with the judge's rationale. I mean, this is a total aside here. We won't go into it in detail, but the one who ruled, the activist, true activist judge, this one, Judge, I think it's Ann Reyes, I believe, who just denied Trump's ability to keep transgenders out of the military. I mean, you look at the logic and go, I don't get it.
Nope.
I mean, are you going to tell a fireman now, when does it stop? Are you going to tell a fireman now that they're allowed to be in a wheelchair and still be a fireman? It doesn't work that way. You're allowed to have bona fide occupational qualifications, and the Trump administration is saying it's got nothing to do with, you know, discrimination against them. It's got everything to do with readiness.
Yeah, and I think the district court judges, their mindset is block first and then reason with it later.
I would say you're right. All right, back on this topic, deportation machinations. So there's that about the judges. The moratorium on shipping them to El Salvador's Secot prison is still underway. By the way, I'm going to skip forward to this story and I'll come back to the other one. Secot prison. That's the notorious prison that they don't want to go to. But Kristi Noem went down there yesterday. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, according to Daily Wire, went down to El Salvador and toured the Secot prison. That's the notorious terrorism confinement center. And you may have seen the videos. By the way, it was a little odd. I mean, she's all glossed up. You know how she does. She's never having a down moment. The makeup always perfect. But she's like, I don't dress down, I guess I would say, for the moment. And touring prison, and then she stood there and she did a promotional video basically in front of a cell with looked like about 80 guys standing around bare-chested with tattoos staring at her. It was the most unusual, uncomfortable looking video I've ever seen. Just saying.
I get the messaging. I mean, trying to freak out and scare the people they're going after.
Yeah, and by the way, that is the point.
Yeah.
And she even says in the video, I toured Secot, El Salvador's terrorism confinement center. President Trump and I have a clear message to criminal illegal aliens. Leave now. If you do not leave, we will hunt you down, arrest you, and you could end up in this El Salvadorian prison. She called it one of the tools in our toolkit. So they haven't given up on this at all. And by the way, El Salvador's President Bukele, he agreed to take back all Salvadoran MS-13 gang members who were in the United States unlawfully. He's also promised to accept and incarcerate violent illegal immigrants, including members of Venezuelans Tren de Aragua, and also any criminal migrants in this country. He even said he would take American criminals if we want to send them down there. He'd take the payment to keep them in his jail. Okay, you talk about crime going down. New York Post. Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel are touting the... By the way, do you recall anything in the last 4 years where you saw as many members of the administration actively doing things and the media having to go all over the place to keep up with them?
Yeah, you mean actually having a cohesive team in the cabinet and the administration?
Wow. And doing stuff that you're like, oh, like that. Oh, I like that over there. Oh, I like that over there too. I like this one. Look what he said. By the way, Pam Bondi and Kash Patel did this press conference at 3 a.m, right out in the street in front of the building where they raided and captured this, was he MS-13? Yeah, MS-13 gang leader. By the way, he was only 23 miles from the White House. That's where they caught the guy. That's nothing. I mean, that's right down the road. He's one of 340 illegal migrant criminals who have been busted by the FBI task force this month alone. I mean, they're scooping them up by the day.
And I saw another stat of, I think, 3 of the top 10 FBI's most wanted have been captured since Kash Patel became FBI director. It's like...
Patel said in this press conference, and I love this, he goes, "This is what happens when you let good cops be good cops."
Yeah. It's amazing.
It's just unbelievable.
But I thought he was going to get rid of the FBI as a whole, is what I was told.
Oh, yeah, he's going to crush the FBI. No, what he's doing is inspiring the members of the FBI. The rank and file is back engaged in what they signed up to do. FBI SWAT teams apparently breached the front doors of the house where this guy, Henry Jose Villatoro Santos, a 24-year-old illegal migrant MS-13 gang leader, was living. He refused to come out and surrender, so they lobbed a stun grenade in. They dragged him out of the house, took him into custody. Upon searching his bedroom, task force officers discovered a trove of weapons, including a 9mm handgun, 3 additional firearms, and 2 silencers. Here illegally, toting a whole bunch of firepower, nothing good could happen. Pam Bondi in the 3 a.m. press conference said, "We didn't need new laws, as President Trump said. All we needed was a new president." But liberals are having none of it. So I printed this article out, and I read this thing, and I thought, you know what? I could read this article, and I could literally water my grass for a week with liberal tears on this one. Just water my grass with liberal tears.
Careful, they might kill your grass.
Ooh,
just careful.
That's right. Burn it out. Let me. By the way, JP, I don't want you to misunderstand.
Yeah.
These guys, the fact that they have tattoos does not make them criminals. You understand that, right? I mean, I know it's hard. How about this? If they have MS-13 tattooed across their chest, is that a giveaway? But this is the most apologetic article. This whiny. All right, this is from The Guardian. I should have told you everything. The Guardian. Phil, did you go to The Guardian? I did. I do these things so you don't have to. All right, I hold it here in my calloused former paratrooper hands. It says, like many Venezuelans of his generation, Franco Jose Caraballo Tiapa is a man of many tattoos. Here we go. There's one of a rose. There's one of a lion. And another on the left side of the 26-year-old's neck of a razor blade. That represents his work as a barber. Okay. He's just a normal kid, says his Florida-based attorney. He likes tattoos. That's it. Well, he's now been shipped to El Salvador by the Trump administration. Okay. Caraballo's fondness for body art may have been his undoing, says the article, for when the father of 2 was detained by U.S. immigration officials in Dallas last month, they appear to have taken his tattoos as proof that he was a member of the notorious Tren de Aragua. That's all they did. They just looked at him and go, "Yeah, we don't like the way you look, buddy.
We don't like those
Putting
tattoos."
You on a plane. Yeah, those tattoos, man.
I bet the person who wrote this article probably has like a Hello Kitty tattoo under her eye or something like that.
Hello Kitty tattoo?
Yeah, so yeah, it's like they think it's the tattoos, obviously, why they got deported, not because they're part of Tren de Aragua.
Well, listen, the bottom line is the whole article goes like that. And they give all these examples. We believe that Neri Jose Alvarado Borges was also shipped down there, and he shouldn't have. They only did it because he had tattoos. And then there was Luis Carlos Jose Marcano Silva. It was just the tattoos on poor Mr. Silva. And then there was Jersey Reyes Barrios, a fifth Venezuelan man who merely had tattoos, he says, that have sealed his fate. Okay. Or what about Francisco Javier Garcia Cacique or Añelo Sarabia Gonzalez? All just, tattoos. That's all it was. Don't they know? First of all, were they here illegally? Yes. All of them. No, the article does not deny that. Did they conduct criminal activity? Well, allegedly they did. And the article doesn't bother talking about that either.
I don't see Jelly Roll or Post Malone about to get deported because they got tattoos all over them.
Well, they're not here illegally.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's obviously not a war on tattoos. It's a war on gang members with tattoos.
Yeah.
Doi. Stuff like that just, annoys the crap out of me.
Listen, the bottom line is this. Tom Homan, Christy Noam, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, man, they are kicking it right now. Kicking it. And by the way, in case any liberals out there are wondering, yes, this is what we voted for. We absolutely did. Between any number of polls throughout the election season, it swapped back and forth between being number one or number two. The border control and the illegal immigration is absolutely one of the top issues. It was either number one or number two in every poll all the way through the election. Trump ran on this. He said, this is what I'll do if you'll elect me. And we said, yes, we'll elect you. And this is what we wanted. And what you're seeing is exactly what's supposed to happen. This is called regaining control. And these deportation machinations, they're not going to stop. They're going to continue. And we may have to fill up Gitmo while we wait on federal district court judges to stop trying to get in the way of everything. But the truth is, you're going to wind up seeing more and more people self-deporting. You're going to wind up seeing, like you are right now, that the southern border is almost calm. It's like a library down there right now. I mean, the walls going up, tunnels are being discovered and blown up. Fentanyl is slowing down coming across the border. And they're even able now to divert resources to the northern border to try and stem some of what they're seeing up there, which is far less in terms of overall numbers, but still high by comparison to where it's been in previous years. All this to say, if you come to our country and you come here illegally, or even if you come here legally and you intend to make trouble when you're here, you should know that your days here are numbered because there's a new sheriff in town. And by God, this is what we voted for. All right, JP, take me to a break. We'll come right back. I'll take some text messages and move us towards the bottom of hour number 2. Don't forget, coming up is JP on Sports. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Pulling pins on truth grenades. That's what we're doing. Scott from Somerville texting in. He says, new policy. Every illegal alien that has been deported can return until they I think he meant cannot return until they've had due process. Wait, what's he trying to say? It's like it's wacky here. New policy, every single alien that has been deported can return until they've had due process as long as they have a liberal to finance their return and maintain their security with house arrest at said liberal's home. Now I see it, and I like it. I like it lots. Yeah. You know what? I tell you what. Let's go ahead and convert Martha's Vineyard to a stateside version of Gitmo. And we'll just turn it into a penal colony. I like it.
She didn't like that last time. You remember?
They didn't like that.
They somebody actually. It was a skit, but yeah, she didn't like it.
They loved on them
Yeah.
and gave them hugs and smoothies and Mai Tais, and then they put them on a bus and shipped them right back out like the next day. It's like, wow. They didn't even pretend.
No.
And they smiled while they were doing it. It was the craziest thing. Thomas from Athens says, getting rid of these alien killers, rapists, pedophiles, etc. Deport via parachuting them back into the country from which they came. Or better, bus them to these judges' neighborhoods and provide them with food and water and tents to pitch in the judges' yards. Wow. Yeah, good luck with that. I don't think that'll work, but I like the sound of it. Paul from Decatur says, why do lesser courts have more power than President Trump? Okay, well, listen, Paul, that's actually the way it's supposed to be. Part of the system of checks and balances we have is that, and I'm going to say things you already know, but the legislative branch passes the laws, the executive branch enforces and enacts the laws, and the judicial branch is the one that rules on whether or not the laws are being properly enforced and or enacted. And they do that on purpose. And so the federal district court judge is the very first in the line. Everything else after that is an appeal of what the federal district court judge did. So the district court does something. Nobody else issues those direct orders. It's the district court typically doing orders, and then the appellate courts deal with whether the order was right. So the most powerful person in the nation, they like to say, is a federal district court judge, because he's the only one that can say, Mr. President, you can't do that. The question is, are we seeing oversteps and abuse of judicial discretion?
And also, federal district court judges don't have more say in the military, like the ruling with the transgender. Than so it's like there's judicial overreach also exists. So it's
they are really going far afield right now. I think more so than ever intended, and they are ruling on things that they clearly come in with an activist mentality on. Red from Tony, Alabama says, fired up for Phil for Fridays. Woo! I had my caffeine, man. Mike from Florence, Alabama says, something that hadn't been talked about much is how many countries Venezuelans crossed through before crossing the southern border, and the Haitians that had already been living in other countries before coming to the United States. Haitians didn't walk from Haiti. No, a lot of them were flown here by the Biden administration. That's at CHNV. The H in the CHNV visa was Haiti. And Haitians were literally, they would fly planes down there to bring them here. The Biden administration did. They gave them a special visa mandate that did not require usual processing. All they had to say was, I'm from Haiti and I'm scared. And they would go get them and bring them here. Thousands and thousands and thousands of them. Ross from Huntsville, Alabama says, Phil, I think there's a better approach. We ought to get these disruptive people into forced labor for things that our country subsidizes, like agriculture, construction, etc. Make some money off of them before kicking them out. Cruel and unusual punishment there, Ross. But yeah. Bruce from Springville says something in YouTube that I can't look at right now, Bruce, but we'll check it out later.
He also, he asked earlier if we saw the Tom Homan clip of him walking by eating an apple.
Eating the apple?
So
is that
maybe,
what yeah.
Maybe what he's sending.
I did. It was epic. Absolutely epic. Tom Homan just walking by the protesters, munching an apple.
It is what he sent, so yeah.
Like a rock star. And then Adam from Athens just wants you to know before we head to JP on Sports, win or lose tonight, Tennessee still owned Alabama athletes this year. That's what he wants you to know.
You know, the first time in my life I remember Tennessee beating Alabama was when I was 21. So let me just put it that way.
Wow. Wow.
15 straight years of dominance was my whole life up to that point.
Tom with all the kids from Huntsville says, I got no tattoos. Chicks dig scars. There you go, Phil Williams. Rightside Radio. Coming up next, JP on Sports. Hey, all you right side ruffians out there, you are listening to Right Side Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Man, covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show goes like from Huntsville back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. I mean all the way down to that loveliest little town we like on the plains. I'm lost. I'm talking out my ears right now. That loveliest little town on the plains we call Auburn. Stretching across to Fort Benning and big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi. I just blew the whole thing, man.
You got kerfuffled.
I got kerfuffled. I looked up at the TV, and that was the wrong thing to do, and I got distracted. That'll never happen again. I'm sorry. I tell you what, let's do this thing. Let's go ahead and switch gears. We're going to get away from politics and policy just for a few minutes. We do this every Friday because my man JP is a sports savant. I mean, the guy knows more about sports than I'll ever know in my lifetime, and he's great at relating it. He also ties it to culture sometimes. So we do a thing every Friday we like to call JP on Sports.
JP on Sports!
There it is. Sorority girls calling him out. All right, we do this thing in two segments. The first is called the Three and Out. That's where we he takes the top three stories, tells you what he thinks the top three stories are in all of sportsdom, and then we come back from the break and we do the 2-minute warnings. 2 minutes on anything, everything in the world to do with sports. JP, Three and Out, ready, go.
So last night we got a
come on
fantastic performance. Alabama with a win over BYU where they set the record of not only threes attempted but threes made in a game. They went 25 of 51 from three that game. We knew going into it, BYU and Alabama have the same style of fast pace, a lot of threes, so it was going to be a track match. But the question was which defense was going to come up and step up. So truthfully, BYU had over 80 points, so they put up a lot of points themselves.
Yeah.
But 113 points with 25 threes, it's really hard to beat that. So Alabama got hot at that night, so BYU was just kind of out of luck. Mark Sears, he kind of been in a slump of threes the last couple of games, so he was due for a big game. He had 34 points, 10 threes. Aiden Holloway also had a big game shooting-wise. So it was about time, Alabama had kind of been slumping three-wise, and their defense and other stuff helped them, win the first two games in the tournament. But if Alabama's peaking at the right time in terms of shooting from three, it's going to be really hard for any team to you're not going to outshoot Alabama when Alabama's shooting at their best. So, but now they got Duke in this next game, which Duke is the 1 seed in that region. So we're going to have a Duke-Alabama matchup, 1 seed versus 2 seed. Cooper Flagg, him and Janai Broom are up for Best Player of the Year for college basketball. So we're going to see a big matchup of star power with Cooper Flagg and a very much different style that Duke has. Duke is a more slow-paced, traditional pick-and-roll type offense, Cooper Flagg and such. So they're going to have to slow down Alabama, and then Alabama is obviously just stop Cooper Flagg. I mean, they got other guys like Tyrese Proctor and such, but I mean, Duke really relies on Cooper Flagg.
That game's tomorrow?
Yes, tomorrow at 8 or 7:30, I believe, tomorrow night. So yeah, it's gonna be the winner of this goes to the Final Four. So it's Alabama's 1 win away from going to back-to-back Final Fours. A couple of other interesting stats too. Nate Oates. He's only 1 win away from tying the program record of most NCAA tournament wins. He would tie Wimp Sanderson, but he's been there half the time as Wimp Sanderson was.
Yeah, how long has Oates been coached at Alabama?
6 years. So 6 years from yesterday as when he's been there. And Wimp Sanderson had 12 wins in 12 years in the NCAA tournament, and Nate Oates has 11 and 6. So if that tells you anything, first back-to-back Elite Eight in program history. All that being said, it looks like behind Nick Saban, it looks like Nate Oates is probably the greatest hire Alabama's ever made in sports. So we'll see. We'll see if they can keep the ride going against Duke. It's going to be hard. It's going to be a really hard matchup for Alabama with Duke.
It's going to be really hard, too, because you have a divided house on this one.
I do. My mother, who is a Duke fan from when Coach K first got hired there.
And she's also a college basketball player herself.
College basketball player
And your
herself,
sister, who's
yeah.
also a college basketball player.
So the two college basketball players in the household are Duke fans, and then everybody else, all the brothers and my dad, are Bama basketball. So it's going to be a house divided. The first time we've ever had to deal with this. So it's going to be interesting for sure.
Nice.
So we'll see. We'll see who's celebrating in the
All right, that's
household.
one. What's two?
So we got Auburn playing tonight against Michigan.
Yeah.
Number 1 seed Auburn, the number 1 seed on the tournament. Auburn going up against Michigan, 5 seed. Interesting storyline in this one. Trey Donaldson, who is the starting point guard for Michigan, transferred to Michigan from Auburn. He was Auburn's starting point guard last year, so he's already said in the pregame press conference about how he's tried to help out the coach with how Auburn runs their stuff. Auburn's probably had to change all of their signals and calls, going up against somebody who knows all that. But it's going to be interesting from the standpoint of, Auburn. They played ever since they won the regular season championship. They've kind of trended down, and this is objectively speaking here. Even in the games that they've won, I think even Auburn fans from that standpoint have said they have not played to their full potential in terms of, they've let teams like Creighton kind of hang around more than they probably should have. ASU had it a game up until like half before Auburn started to pull away. So Auburn hasn't really. It almost looks like they've let off the gas a little bit in terms of ever since they won the regular season SEC championship, they've just kind of coasted, and it's cost them in the A&M game, it cost them in the Alabama game, it cost them in the Tennessee game in the tournament. So Auburn really needs to get back to how they were playing. It looks like they almost lost a fire a little bit. They got comfortable after winning the regular season championship. If Auburn plays how they have played majority of the season, I don't think there's many people in college basketball that can beat Auburn. So if Auburn goes back to, how they've been playing before they won the regular season championship, I think they should go through Michigan easily. But you got Michigan, who's going to be playing up. They're going to be playing the top team in the tournament.
Yeah.
Trey Donaldson playing up against his former team. So Auburn, they don't need to, just relax and assume anything in this Michigan game. I mean, you don't assume anything in any March Madness game, but I think this is the game Auburn needs to get back to playing to their full potential.
The Auburn of second half Creighton needs to be the Auburn of first half Michigan.
Yes, and the whole game Michigan too.
The whole
for that
game
matter.
Michigan. You're exactly right.
Michigan's a sneaky team. I mean, they're good. The 5 seed will fool you. I think they're a little bit better than a 5 seed. So, if I were an Auburn fan, I'd be looking for Janai Broome to come out early. He's relaxed in the first half. It's looked like the last couple of games. Go out, pedal to the metal from the get-go, and get back to playing how you've played. And I say all this, and, they're in the Sweet 16. So it's like, people may see that and say, well, what's the big deal? But I think, like I said, even Auburn fans would argue they have not played to their full potential in this tournament yet. So I'm looking forward to see if Auburn can do that. And if they do, like I said, I don't think it should be even close. I mean, Auburn's the number 1 seed for the reason. So.
Okay, that's 2. 2 out of 3. What's 3?
We got another big-time SEC matchup in the March Madness.
Still
tonight.
basketball, okay,
yeah. It's going to be. That's what's going on. Right? That's the March Madness. What else is there to talk about?
I thought sure your Braves were going to be in there somewhere.
They're here in the 2-minute warning.
Okay.
Don't worry. So we got Kentucky and Tennessee tonight. It's a rematch where Kentucky got the upper hand against Tennessee earlier this season. Tennessee was, they made it to the SEC championship and then lost to Florida. But it's looking like a SEC fest, as it should be. We had 14 teams in the March Madness, but this is going to be a good matchup, I think, between Tennessee and Kentucky. I think it'll be pretty close. Kentucky got guys back that were hurt most of the year. And when they got them back, they seemed to be like a new and improved team. So this is not the Kentucky team, that played most of the regular season. This is a Kentucky team with a lot of their healthy guys back and looking to make a run, but they're going to have to get through Tennessee, who with Sakai Ziegler and such, they're an experienced team. A Rick Barnes team is always going to be a hard team to beat. But they did it earlier in the year, so we'll see if Mark Pope learned anything from those games, able to replicate it in this one. But I'm expecting this to maybe be, the game of the day, between Tennessee and Kentucky. It's going to be mighty close. Like I said, it's 2 pretty evenly matched teams. I think it's going to come down to guard play, though, with Sakai Ziegler, the experienced guy for Tennessee. If he's able to play like he has been playing, a great defensive guard as well. if he's able to play as he has been all year, it's going to be hard to beat Tennessee. But don't count Kentucky out. I think they've kind of come into the tournament with a chip on their shoulder of they hung around as the 3 seed even with a lot of their team injured. So now that they got their guys back, they're looking to make a run. So I think this SEC matchup's going to be a mighty close one. I think this will be the game of the day for sure.
That's interesting. So I was about to say something about the SEC, but overall, are we seeing, like, is the SEC domination of March Madness right now, are we seeing that impact the portal? Are kids wanting to come to the SEC? Are we seeing people like jumping in, trying to find a way in?
So, that interesting you asked that. That was going to be part of my 2-minute warning.
I won't mess you up then.
Well, we had the portal open right now. The portal opened earlier this week on Monday, and it's so like coaches who are in the Sweet 16 right now are having to manage their team right now, but then also keep an eye on the portal about anybody that they want to snag in the portal. So I think a SEC overall with NIL, and this is all sports, I think the SEC puts more of an emphasis on their athletic programs than a lot of other places. I think they're able to devote more to their athletic programs. So I think it's just the SEC as a whole, football, basketball, baseball has more resources to recruit these kids. So I don't know if it's just a basketball thing. I think it's the SEC as a whole in all sports in this new world of NIL and the transfer portal, all that is just dominating in all sports. So it's fun, though. I like the SEC being the best at everything.
I'm for that. We look good in baseball, too.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
All right, that's it. The 3 and out. That's round 1 of JP on Sports. We take a break right now. We come back and we jump into the section called the 2-minute warning. It's fast. It's furious. It's everything sports. It might even have some culture thrown in. We got a timer and a buzzer. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. All right, so every Friday afternoon we take a break from politics and policy and we jump on some JP on Sports. This is round 2 of JP on Sports. That's called the 2-minute warning. I've got a stopwatch and a buzzer, so we're going to do a little JP on Sports 2-minute warnings. Go, brother.
So I briefly mentioned it earlier, but opening day was yesterday for baseball, and the Braves unfortunately dropped the first game 7-4 to the Padres. They'll be playing tonight at 8 o'clock. But I think the storyline is interesting. We saw Rob Manfred, who is the MLB commissioner. I think he's a lousy commissioner, but this is something I actually agreed with him on. I thought this was really good from him. So ESPN and MLB have ended their contract. This is the last year of their contract. And there's been a lot of talk about ESPN they don't really care about baseball. They don't cover it enough. When they do cover it, it's always Yankees, Dodgers, and that's it. They do not show much attention to all the regional aspects of baseball. But Rob Manfred went on a podcast and really aired out his grievances against ESPN, talking about how they really felt disrespected, how little they covered the sport, and talked about they upped all their money, how much they poured into the NFL and the NBA, and then they put MLB on the back burner. They ended ESPN tonight, or baseball tonight on ESPN. So really put ESPN on blast about how little they did and contributed to covering baseball. So it's interesting because like I said, this is the last year going forward with ESPN and MLB, but MLB or the ESPN is just so focused on LeBron and the NBA and the Cowboys and the NFL. They're so focused on the mainstream stories, where majority of sports fans, they want to hear about the Braves. They want to hear about the regional teams. They want to hear about the teams that they care about. And it looks like ESPN is continuing to lose touch with what the common average sports fan wants, and is continuing to just be indoctrinating fans on what they think they should care about instead of what they actually care about. So I thought that was a really interesting storyline for Manfred to come out and air his grievances publicly like that. You don't see that come from Manfred often, so he clearly was hurt.
That's a buzzer, 2 minutes. All right. Wow, airing the grievances. Okay, next round of 2 minutes. Go.
And we briefly talked about this too, but the transfer portal for college basketball is open. It's open season, and yet we still have March Madness going on. We've seen multiple coaches, big-time coaches, talk about this. We saw Tom Izzo talk about this, who is currently still playing in the Sweet 16. He said how there's not a lot of recruiting that goes on in the transfer portal. It's just offering that goes on. Whoever the highest bidder wins in the transfer portal right now, and talking about how ridiculous it is. Calipari the same, talking about how ridiculous it is that he's having to look at the transfer portal while also coach his team in the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. Bruce Pearl actually had a different opinion on it. He actually liked it. He came out and said that
really?
He said that with the teams whose season ended already, he says he doesn't see a problem with them going ahead and getting in the portal. He didn't see a problem with it. And he said that coaches right now that are having to coach their team in the Sweet 16 and also manage the transfer portal is a good problem to have. So, he actually had a contradicting, viewpoint than Izzo and Calipari on this. But I'm of the mindset of it's just ridiculous, because one thing I haven't heard enough people talk about, we saw McNeese State, who won their first round, by the way. Before they played their first round game, their coach took the job at NC State because of how soon the transfer portal opens. They got to have a coach, before the transfer portal opens. So he's having to take another job while coaching his team to make it, work, because NC State is like, we need you to agree now. We have the transfer portal coming up. We got to recruit kids. We need an answer now. So he's having to coach and win, in the March Madness while taking other jobs as coaches. That's an aspect I haven't heard people talk enough about, is how much coaches are affected by this just as much as players. So bottom line is, transfer portal in all sports needs to be fixed. The windows need to be smaller, and coaches shouldn't be having to coach their teams and recruit in the portal.
I got a quick question before you go on from that, though. Hit the buzzer, because that's okay. Didn't we have a player who's still in March Madness right now go into the portal while his team is still playing?
Michigan's Scottie
Michigan, that's right.
Scottie Pippen's son.
That's right.
He's granted he's kind of a bench player, but still, your team's in the Sweet 16 and he's entering the transfer portal already. That you don't know when you're ever going to be able to be in the Sweet 16 again in your life. That's something you don't take for granted. You enjoy every second of it and soak it up with your team instead of leaving to go to another team. I guess it's business in college sports right now, but it's just it's tacky to me.
But the fact that we're having so much business in sports is what's so irritating too.
Yes,
All right.
I agree.
All right. We ran overtime on
No,
that
you're
one,
good.
so let's go ahead and go next 2 minutes. Go.
Deion Sanders today signs a
What?
5-year, $54 million contract extension with Colorado.
Wow.
So this answers a big question. You know,
His son's leaving?
Yeah, his son Shador is leaving to go to the NFL. His son Shiloh, who is also leaving. So both of his sons at Colorado are leaving. Also Travis Hunter leaving, who he kind of deemed, his third son. He followed him from Jackson State over to Colorado. There was a lot of talk about Deion maybe taking the Cowboys job this offseason. Deion's name gets mentioned in almost any coaching position ever in football, both college and the NFL. And the big part of that was because his sons were leaving Colorado. And a lot of people have the impression that the only reason he was coaching in college football, for that matter at all, was to coach his sons. But now he's answered that question, that he's willing to stick around at Colorado even with his sons leaving. So this shows that he's wanting to build Colorado up as a program. He's not just there to build his son's resume up. He's not just there for the clicks and all that. He's there to genuinely win at Colorado, and he thinks that Colorado is a place that he can win at. So that the 5-year, $54 million contract, by the way, he could have gotten much higher at other places, I think. I mean, if he was willing to take as much money as possible, I guarantee you there's some SEC schools that would buck up the money for Deion Sanders. But him taking less money than he could get elsewhere, I think also shows that he's wanting to stick at Colorado for the right reasons. So it looks like all the Deion coaching names, whenever any job opens anywhere in football, can stop now because he just signed this 5-year extension. So
Got 54 million reasons to stay.
exactly. So
I heard he was looking to take Kalen DeBoer's place, but DeBoer decided to stay.
no, I think I'm good with DeBoer personally.
3, 2,
there we go. There's
1, buzzer.
There's the music.
Oh, and there's the music too. All right, you made it in under the wire, man, just in time. JP on sports, good stuff. All right, you guys, coming up on hour number 3 on a Friday, we'll get you all the way to go home time. Y'all stay tuned. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We will be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 3 on a Friday. By the way, this is the last Friday of March. This is the last Friday of March.
March just flew by.
We are officially into spring come Tuesday. Allegedly, we had the first day of spring already.
Yeah, it was like last week.
It feels springy, I will be honest. But nonetheless, we are in the last Friday of March. I tell you, I'm gonna pull an audible here. I'm still in JP on sports mode. I'm calling an audible. All right, I'm at the line. I am reading the defense. I am calling an audible.
Omaha.
So, check stick scars. All right, so I just saw something on social media during the break that so cracked me up that I told JP, I said, I think we have to play this on the air. I think we're going to have to. Let me first say that Representative Tim Burchett, congressman from our listening area in Tennessee, is fast becoming one of my favorite congressmen. Guy cracks me up. You know, Senator John Kennedy has the amazing ability to sling words out there that are so disarming and so effectively timed and so well worded and hilarious that they crack me up all the time. Tim Burchett is not quite to Senator John Kennedy's level, but dang, he's close. So here's the storyline for you. I'm watching the video. You can see, by the way, I found it on, it's Bongino Report still has its own, of course, Twitter feed, X. So I found it on @Bongino Report. I don't know who this kid is, but he's like one of those freelance reporters or something. And he's got his camera out and he's trying to film Congressman Burchett as he walks to the Capitol building. And he says, and I'm not going to say the first part and then you can hear the whole thing. He says, Congressman, do you trust Trump's national security team to keep our war plans top secret? And the response to this is epic. And you got the audio? Turn it up a little bit and play it.
Congressman Perry, do you trust Trump's national security team to keep our war plans top secret?
Do you trust your mother every night to fix your Hot Pockets and make sure your Game Boy is turned on?
You got a laugh track or an applause or something. You got to just hit all of them, man. Just go ahead and give it all. That's hilarious. I mean, by the way, that was totally off the cuff. That was not a scripted moment. He wasn't looking at a cue card. Burchett's walking to the Capitol, and this kid says, "Do you?" And like this really kind of whiny voice. Do you trust Trump's national security team to keep our war plans top secret? While he holds his phone up in Burchett's face, and Burchett goes, "Do you trust your mother every night to fix your Hot Pockets and make sure your Game Boy is turned on?" Oh, I'm dying, man. That was okay. All right, there. I've had my moment.
That was great.
We can move on now. It's all okay. All right, I'm gonna call another audible. I'm gonna move to number 3 on the Triple Dipper, and I'm gonna do it first since that was the subject of my my monologue. Selective racism. What does that mean, Phil? Selective racism. Well, that's when you're only racist when it suits your needs, right? That's when you only call racism when you see a thing that you need to deal with because it also helps your agenda, or it helps you raise money, or it helps you stoke up the anger you need for your political power. Selective racism. Like, it's not about all racism's bad. It's about only when it affects that thing that I care about, then it's bad. So I said it earlier in the show in my monologue, but I'll remind you guys. So Trump has been signing executive orders. He signed more executive orders than I think any president in history in his first 100 days. He had 100 days. We're like at, what, 65 days? It's crazy. But all said and done, President Donald Trump signed another executive order last night. And this one is designed to redo or to fix some of the changes that were made during what Daily Caller that I hold in my calloused former paratrooper hands. Daily Caller calls the former racial reckoning movement. I never heard of it, but they're coining their own phrase. I approve. Racial reckoning movement, including the restoration of monuments and the removal of so-called anti-American ideologies from national museums and other federal properties. Meanwhile, he appointed J.D. Vance to be the head of the Smithsonian's board. So, the White House said they are, quote, restoring truth and sanity to American history by revitalizing key cultural institutions and reversing the spread of divisive ideology. I mean, you've already got Usha Vance has been appointed to the board of what's the Kennedy Center. You've got now J.D. Vance is on the board at the Smithsonian. You got an executive order that says, oh, by the way, how about you restore some of those monuments you tore down? Listen, during the monument teardown phase, they went whole hog. Now, on the one hand, not that I approved, but you can almost get the idea that a Confederate statue could be divisive. I get that. I've seen a lot of Confederate statues in my day. I live in the Deep South, so certainly I've seen them. Not every single one of them can be torn down. In fact, you can just go ahead and look at the Alabama State Capitol. There's a gold star embedded in the stairs of the Capitol, right as you walk up the steps, straight up off Dexter Avenue, up the steps, center mass to our state capitol. There's a gold star embedded in the stairs, and it's in the marble stairs, and it says, on this step, Jefferson Davis stood and was sworn in as the president of the Confederacy. That's interesting. That's dynamic. That's history. You also have the little White House of the Confederacy right next door. That's interesting. That's history. It doesn't mean we're worshiping Jefferson Davis, but what it means is something happened right here, and it was big doings. Then you got statues that, okay, if they glorify a Confederate, deal with it, and maybe even let the locals to have a say in it, but tearing them down is never going to be okay. Tearing them down is literally, that's crime. But then you've got sort of everybody's swept up in the moment. You can't say all lives matter. We got to do something to show how woke we are. Let's virtue signal. Let's take down Thomas Jefferson. Why are we taking down Thomas Jefferson? He's one of the founding fathers. What are we doing there? Well, Thomas Jefferson had slaves. Okay, that's awful. I hate that he had slaves. He also did an amazing amount to help found the country that later on did away with slavery and fought slavery on the world stage. But anyway, and then you've got and by the way, this got so out of hand. It got to where they're tearing down statues of Abraham Lincoln because they don't even understand history anymore, and they forgot the Emancipation Proclamation was his. I mean, this went on. Christopher Columbus statues torn down. Why? Because he came to the New World, and there were indigenous tribes that lived here, and he just subjugated them. No, he didn't. He came here and he planted the flag for Spain because that's what the world did back then. And, oh, by the way, are you wanting to give it all back now? I don't think you do. But here we are. And the idea that you're going to tear down statues and rip up history and pretend that things didn't happen. And by the way, the mantra that you hear on the left is going to be, you're trying to whitewash history. No, we're not. I said it in my monologue earlier. I was taught about slavery when I was a kid in high school. This is back, I mean, literally, I'm in middle school, high school, late 70s, early 80s. I was taught about slavery. I was. We had to read the book, what's it called? Black Like Me. It was a mandatory reading. We got To Kill a Mockingbird, mandatory reading. I mean, all of the. I was. There was no whitewashing of history. I was taught about the baser things that occurred in the places where I was walking and talking and growing up. I know that Alabama was the cradle of the Confederacy and that slavery was big here. I get that. It was wrong. There's also never been anybody in my lifetime who's been a slave. And I don't know anybody who's ever had a slave. But did generations have them back then? Of course they did. And I can't help that. It happened. And it ended, by the way, in America over 150 years ago. Now, that being said, you have to look forward at where we are. We are a nation that has done more in the world to end slavery and apartheid and racism. I mean, where are you people screaming right now about what's happening in South Africa as they've totally reversed every positive step that was made by Mandela, and they're literally now purging the country of white farmers. All that to say, the selective racism that we see so often in America is usually based on an agenda. It's a power thing. It's a fundraising thing. It's a knee-jerk reaction thing. I know that racism exists. It does, and it's wrong. I was raised to believe it was wrong. I also know that we are not systemically racist, and I stand by that. I served 30 years in the military. My father and my grandfather served before me. I've got family members serving right now. I can tell you right now, the U.S. military is not systemically racist, but for the last 4 years we were told it was. And it was absolutely, just mandatory. We had to change the names of posts, like Fort Bragg couldn't be Fort Bragg anymore. But Trump is restoring order on this. He's bringing back the era of common sense, and he called it restoring truth and sanity to our American history. And I'm appreciative of that, because you can't just, they say you can't whitewash history. Well, that's what they're doing. They're trying to pretend that it's too shocking for people to know that something happened 150 years ago. And we're not putting up shrines to them at all. But what we are saying is things happened, and we're not going to forget. And oh, by the way, we're going to honor things that went right. And when you tear down everything because you're offended by something, when you live offended, basically you drag society down with you. Now, here's the other piece about selective racism. Selective racism is amazing when you look at things that are required and are actually enshrined as rights in our society. Selective racism says we can't make voter integrity a big deal, because the only way you can do that is to get a voter ID. And that's offensive because, surely you understand that black people and other minorities, they don't know how to go get an ID. That's the biggest insult I have ever heard. Why isn't the black community screaming of that insult? Why aren't they saying you are denigrating us as a people when you say stuff like that? And yet I heard the very things in Montgomery when I was there. We're going to take a break right now. When we get back, I'm going to play you an audio track of interviews on the street. Black folks and white folks being asked what they think about the idea of black folks having to show an ID to vote. Is it going to be hard? Is it difficult? You're going to like this. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. All right, so I'm in what would have been number 3, but I kind of moved it up here. Selective racism. I wanted to cover this. So one of the things that also happened this week with Trump was he signed another executive order that promotes voter integrity, or actually election integrity, by making sure that illegals cannot vote. And immediately we got calls of racism. Now, when I was in the Alabama legislature, we also passed photo ID just for voting in general in all state and federal elections. If you register in Alabama, you have to present photo ID to vote. It's not hard. We got all the calls of racism back then. I mean, you were disenfranchising the black vote. They can't get a voter ID. Don't you understand? It was the most asinine thing I'd ever heard. I can't tell you. I think I went to the microphone multiple times and said, "Why are you insulting the black population of the state of Alabama like this?" I mean, this is a nation where a black man's already been president of the United States. We're Supreme Court justices. We've got, the former Secretary of State, twice actually. We're a black woman and a black man. I mean, you look at it and go, come on, y'all. Stop insulting people by saying they can't do something when this is the nation where we can do almost anything. Well, so I'm going to play you an audio, which we're going to wind up lapping through to the next portion because it's a long audio. I'm going to break it into 2 sections here. There's a guy named Ami Horowitz. He did street interviews out in Berkeley, California. Oh, boy. He went to Berkeley, California to interview white liberals on the street, and then he went to Harlem and interviewed black citizens on the street. And he asked the white liberals, do you think it's voter suppression to require voter ID for African Americans? And let's play the first part of that. You ready? Go ahead.
An opinion on voter ID laws?
Yeah, they're usually pretty racist and they're bad.
I think voter ID laws are a way to perpetuate racism.
Would you go as far as say those laws are racist?
For sure.
Do you think it suppresses the African American vote?
Definitely.
Tell us how.
Because they're less likely to have state IDs.
Minority voters are less likely to have the kinds of IDs that have been described or required.
These type of people don't live in areas with easy access to DMVs or other places where they can get identification.
You can always get IDs on the internet. Does that also make it difficult for black people in particular?
Yeah, you have to have access to the internet. You have to be able to pay an internet service provider for certain fees.
Do you think that's harder for black people to go online?
Well, I feel like they don't have the knowledge of how it works.
A lot of people have smartphones, but you might not have data.
For most of the communities, they don't really know what is out there just because they're not aware or they're not informed. I also think there's a repression of black voting with how if you're a convicted felon, you're not allowed to vote and everything.
Wow.
And when you look at swing states like Florida, that's a huge population of the African Americans.
Now I'm here in East Harlem to ask black people.
All right, stop. I'm embarrassed for these people.
By the way, I've been called racist for referencing that exact clip before.
Have you really?
Yes, I have. Yes. we having this exact same discussion about how racist it is to say that black people can't get voter ID, and I referenced that exact clip, and I was then called racist for that. So
who called you a racist?
I won't say his name on there, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so yeah, this maddening video is a bunch of white liberals telling you that. It's very important you understand that black people don't know how to use the internet, and they don't live close to DMVs, and they're not aware of the kind of IDs they have to have, and this is an effort towards voter suppression. And then the one girl said something about Florida being a swing state. What is she talking about?
And saying saying that the felon population is
mostly
black.
Black
people don't have internet.
Oh yeah, it's awful. It's hard. Listen, I am not going to pretend that every person in America has access to everything that every other person has. I get that. Rural America has things, and sometimes they don't have things that city America does. You can look at it and say, okay, depending on where you live, there might be some things that are different. Or for that matter, you might have an income disparity. It's not about black and white. It's not. This is so maddeningly insulting. But when we get back, what we're going to do after this break is I'm going to play for you. The same guy took those same comments and he went to Harlem and he interviewed black citizens on the street and got their gut reactions to the things that are being said about them by the white liberals from Berkeley. And it's just enjoyable to listen to, I'll be honest, because it refutes everything that liberals say about voter ID. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. I got more. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. Goes from Huntsville all the way back over to Chattanooga, from Tuscaloosa back to Gaston, to that loveliest little town on the plains called Auburn, and stretching across the border into Fort Benning, Georgia, and even big old chunks of North Georgia and Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. I did it that time, JP.
It was muscle memory.
There's no notes on that, by the way.
You locked in.
I did. I just zoned
No
on
distractions.
it. Zoned on it. We got a bunch of text messages I'll get to in a moment, but right now I'm going to finish up this section on selective racism. It's amazing. It's amazing. Does anybody, all right, so we played, all right, use your words, Phil. We played the first half of this clip a moment ago of a guy named Ami Horowitz, who's interviewing white liberals on the street in Berkeley, California. And the things they said, I got news. They think they're being nice, and they're really being selectively racist. Because these white liberals are trying to help the poor black people who don't know how to use the internet, because that's hard. And that's just the most base level of selective racism I've ever heard. And the idea that an entire race of people are not smart enough to get a photo ID is insulting at the lowest level. But then he went to Harlem. He took those street interviews he did, and he went to Harlem, and he started asking people there, hey, so, what do you think about it? Let's go ahead and play it.
Their thoughts on what you just heard. Do you have ID normally? You carry ID around?
Yes, I have state ID.
Do you carry ID?
Yes, I do.
Do you know any black person who doesn't carry ID?
No. Everyone that I know has an ID. Why would they think we don't have ID?
That's a lie. Why would they say that?
Do you have ID?
Yes.
Because I have my ID and my friends have their ID, so we know what we need to carry around.
Everybody that I know have ID. Like, that's one of the things you need to walk around with New York with, an ID.
Do you know any black adult who does not have ID?
No, I don't.
Is it a weird thing to even say that?
Yes, it is.
What is this, some type of trick candy camera?
I know, right? That's the only thing I brought with me.
Those are legit IDs. I heard a lot also that black people can't figure out how to get to the DMV.
Really?
What does that say to you?
I know it's that. It's on 25th Street.
Do you know where the DMV is around you?
It's on 125th Street and 3rd Avenue, I believe.
You know how to get there?
Yeah.
Would you have a problem getting there if you had to get there?
No.
I know these sound like silly questions. You know how to get to the DMV?
Of course.
You know where it is?
Yes.
You can get there?
Uh-huh.
No problem.
No problem.
Just checking.
Okay.
And I also heard a lot that black people, especially poor black people, have no access to the internet, can't figure out how to use the internet.
That's just stupidity, honestly. Everybody has access to the internet. Even a little kid can figure out how to work the internet.
I had access to the internet for years.
You know how to use it properly, right?
Exactly. I do it at work. So, of course, I know how to use it. My kids know how to use it. They all have iPads, iPods, whatever.
Your phone has data?
Mm-hmm.
You can actually
unlimited.
Unlimited data.
Mm-hmm. I use my phone as a hotspot.
What does that say to you for the people who have this perception of black people?
They're pretty much ignorant. That's what my thought process was.
I just think that's ignorant. Ignorant.
Ignorant. That's the word.
Very
ignorant.
Let's go ahead and stop it there. I mean, you get the point. You get the point. Everybody he interviewed the first time were white liberals. Everybody he interviewed the second time were just folks passing by, but they were all black on the streets in New York City. And by the way, New York City, not known for being a conservative bastion, right?
Especially Harlem.
Especially Harlem. So, I mean, I don't think they've elected a Republican there in quite a while. But we're looking at AOC's backyard, right? So the land of Chuck Schumer. But this is where we are right now. They're gonna throw shade of racism on everything in order to try and maintain a control of the black vote, and they're losing on it. And that's what's so enjoyable is how much they're losing on it. They're losing on it on a regular basis. I mean, think back to the campaign season of 2020, when Joe Biden let the inside words become the outside words, and he looked at Charlemagne the God and he said, "If you don't vote for me, you ain't black." And that was, I mean, the whole world kind of went, "Whoa!" But the liberal left wouldn't do anything about it. They will scream racism because that was the summer of love. That was in that same time frame. You had BLM riots burning whole city blocks because of perceived systemic racism. In response to the George Floyd incident up in Wisconsin, and all that's going on, and yet at the same time, the liberal left guy at the top of the ticket is able to say something like, "If you don't vote for me, you ain't black," which is nothing but a selective racism on his part. And what he basically said by saying that was, "We own you. You're our vote. Get on board. You know how you're supposed to act." That's what he said. I know I had to interpret it, but that's what he said. And yet, if that had been a Republican that had said that, wow.
Too many members of the Democratic Party view African Americans as their pawns almost.
They do. They take them for granted.
Yeah. It's like you must vote for me, and it's like a get in line attitude.
Yeah,
and it's extremely demeaning and
know your place in society.
And it's Barack Obama saying, "I'm not feeling enough energy from the brothers to vote for Kamala Harris."
Oh my gosh, that's right, he did.
It's like, really?
Yeah. So okay. So I just had to get this off my chest because I had just seen. So, Phil, why are you doing this today? Because of the 2 executive orders this week, both of which are already going to be facing charges of racism. You've got the executive order from Trump just last night to reestablish monuments and statues that have been torn down in what one article called the racial reckoning movement of 2020, the same time frame I talked about a minute ago. And then the other executive order was earlier this week, defining the fact that our election integrity laws need to get tightened up, and he is requiring proof of citizenship for all federal elections. And that means you're going to have to present ID, and that means it's going to be scary. And of course, you hear white liberals in Berkeley saying, "You can't ask black people to have an ID." Yes, you can. You know why? Because just like everybody else, they have rights. They want their election. I don't care how they vote. I don't care how anybody votes. Everybody wants their elections to count. Everybody wants their vote to count. Everybody wants the count to be right when it's counted. And the only way to do that is to tighten up election laws. So the idea, anyway, selective racism, you hear me? Use that phrase when you're having one of those water cooler conversations or talking to one of your liberal friends at Sunday dinner, and they said something about, "Well, this is wrong," and just tell them you're being selectively racist. What do you mean by that? When it fits your agenda, you'll say things that nobody else is allowed to say. All right, I'm gonna call it there. I'm gonna get some text messages. I got a ton of them.
By the way,
yeah, what?
You got 2 messages when you said in passing your calloused parachuting hands. You got 2 people who caught that and texted in about it. I don't know if you saw that.
What did they say?
David from Cortland said that you ought to start using the phrase "in my previously calloused parachuting hands" as a right side way catchphrase like Rush Limbaugh did "in my previously nicotine stained fingers."
I will. You know what? Maybe I'm channeling my inner Rush. I don't know, but I will. That may become a thing. It just came out today.
And then Tom with all the kids just texting and curious about your parachuting experience as who you've jumped with.
Oh yeah, as an Army paratrooper and jump master, I got a few behind me. Not all of which went really well.
Which is why
most of them did. I walked into the studio today, didn't I?
Yeah.
But I still got a paratrooper neck with 3 fused vertebrae. So how about that?
I just found that funny that you said that in passing and people caught on to that. It's funny.
All right, good enough. Let me get some text messages here real quick. JP, what do we got? 443. Okay, yeah. CJ from Huntsville. Many illegals falsely cited India as their country of origin. I'm not aware of this. He said, "Will HHS be forced to send them to India?" CJ, I cannot answer that question because I've never heard that before. That's interesting to me. Hey, CJ, if you got an article or some other sourcing that says that, I would love to see it because I had never thought about them lying about their country of origin once we found them. That's interesting. But you know what? If we don't know anything different, but we know they're here illegally and they say, "I'm from India," I'd say pack them up and send them off. Adam from Athens when a team never makes it to the tournament, it's not hard to beat the record of wins. Just saying. Who's he talking about?
He's
there?
talking about when
okay,
I said
see
Nate
it.
Oates. Hey, Wimp Sanderson got to the Sweet 16. I think eight times, went 0-8 in the Sweet 16. So, I mean, it's not that he didn't get there. He couldn't break the block that Oates already did. So.
Adam, he's wearing his maroon shirt. You're not gonna be able to make it today, man.
Hey, I will stick by Wimp Sanderson all I can on this show.
Mike from Florence says, I want to hear about the UFL and even the IFL. And he says, by the way, I'm sorry. He says something that hadn't been talked about much is how many countries Venezuelans cross. Oh, I did read that earlier.
He's talking about so the UFL, which is the other football league, starts
Yeah.
this week. I didn't even notice that. Thanks for bringing that to my attention.
I feel a future 2-minute warning.
Where the Birmingham Stallions are like the dominant team in that league.
Birmingham always has the dominant team in the alternative league.
Yeah,
and they have since I was a kid.
It's all the former Bama and Auburn players who like were in the NFL for like 2 years and went to the UFL.
We've had the Birmingham Stallions, the Birmingham Vulcans. We've had the Birmingham All-Americans, I believe, and then they come back to the Stallions, and then
Yep.
it's like, wow. Little did you know, we had season tickets. Granddaddy did to the Birmingham Stallions first go around.
Really?
I went down to a game or two. Yep.
So we had the Huntsville Vipers season tickets, the arena football team.
Oh, I saw them. Yeah, they were pretty cool. I always liked the fact that arena football, they would kick off and the receiver would have to turn around and catch it off the net.
Yeah.
That was crazy. Tom with all the kids says, just curious who you jumped with. He said, I've got jumps with the 82nd, the 525th MI, and the 20th Engineers. Thank you for your service, Tom, with all the kids. I jumped with the 122nd LURS out of Georgia. I jumped with 20th Special Forces Group multiple times. I jumped, who else? And I've jumped on every DZ out of every aircraft I can think of, rotary wing and fixed wing. But yeah, Tom, thanks for your paratrooper service. Paul from Athens says, slavery of different races still exists in the world. Let them fight it there. Okay. John from Huntsville says, Tim Burchett. He said, Congressman Tim Burchett gets massive extra credit points for that Hot Pockets comment. Hot Pockets.
Big Hot Pockets guy over here.
I don't mind a Hot Pocket.
I had my Hot Pocket phase in middle school. So.
Although you can napalm your mouth with a Hot Pocket.
Oh yeah, you can. Yeah.
You can.
It's almost like required.
You can lose part of your tongue with a Hot Pocket.
Yeah, it's a every time experience almost.
It's napalm in a roll.
Yeah.
Jen from Huntsville says, I'm still disgusted the Robert E. Lee statue by artist Henry Schrady was melted down. History or not, it was one of a kind piece of art. Yeah, I get it. And there's a place, so here's the thing. If a courthouse or a local community does not want to have, the Robert E. Lee statue, destroying it does not seem like the right thing to do. I would say you can find a private collector who will take it. You can find another place to put it. You maybe even find like a Civil War battlefield that will take it because what do you do? It's Civil War. Robert E. Lee may have fought there. I just look at it and think, I get where maybe you don't want to honor that in front of your courthouse anymore, but the idea of burning it or melting it down, my gosh, makes no sense. David from Cortland, Alabama says, hey, Phil, this is David from Cortland. You ought to start using the phrase in my previously, callous parachuting hands. Yeah, I see it. All right, thanks, man. I appreciate that. This may stick. I don't know. Roxanne from Harvest says, Colonel Williams and JP, have a great and safe weekend. Thank you, Roxanne. You as well, my friend. Graham from Meridianville says, hey, Phil, not everybody wants fair elections, and every vote counted. Plenty of Democrats have proven that. Not sure what we're saying here.
He's saying not everybody wants fair elections and every vote counted, I think is what he's trying to say.
Okay, there was no punctuation.
Yeah.
The punctuation, lack thereof, was killing me. I'm sorry about that. All right. Thank you, Graham. A couple more, go to the break. Gary from Scottsboro says, Democrats don't take blacks for granted. Democrats keep blacks segregated and oppressed in large cities where they expect blacks to remain faithful voters. That was part of my point a moment ago. Yes, indeed. I think they do take them for granted, though. I think they imagine that they have got them where they want them and that they will stay there. Listen, I do realize that, and I hate to even say the black vote, the white vote, the male vote, the female vote. I hate to, but the reality is there are demographics that are measured by pollsters and they see them. And the preponderance of the black vote, if you will, has been Democrat for decades. But they saw a large turning away to the Republican Party this last election, a large turning away. And you are watching right now as man-on-the-street interviews are indicating clearly that the folks who have voted Democrat, many of them are saying, why? Why did I do that? Look at what I'm getting now. In the first 60 days, they're already saying that. Real quick, Red from Tony, Alabama says, imagine being so disconnected from reality you make assumptions of whole swaths of people, but being so unaware of it that you live as though your assumptions are a reality. You just described Democrats. Thank you very much, Red. Mike from Florence, Alabama says NFL kickers come from the UFL, usually ex-soccer players.
There has been a lot.
There's been a few. And then Tom with all the kids says, not a paratrooper, just a pogue on the core step. No, man. You're a paratrooper. If you jumped, you jumped. Knees to the breeze, brother. Feet and knees together. Stop, drop, and roll. All right, listen, we're going to take a break right now. We'll come right back. We're heading to the weekend, you guys. It is Friday. Y'all stay tuned. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. All right, great week. This has been a target-rich environment for a conservative talk show. You know, it's one of those things where I am thankful every day. But y'all, I got to tell you, as I head into the Friday, as we get into go-home time right now, you may recall that I said yesterday that we have gone for like months with me not even realizing that I wasn't playing the jackassery sound effect. So if you hang around Rightside Radio long enough, you know that we got our own lexicon, right? We got our own vocabulary. And we have a number of words we used to use, and this show's been on the air now for 4 years. So we went through the entire Biden administration, and we had these words we used all the time. One was jackassery. And every time, thank you very much. Every time we saw some jackassery is defined in Rightside language as, you know, that official act of someone in elected office that was just so asinine that it could not be qualified as anything less than jackassery. And so we'd identify those things and call them out and then play the sound effect. The other one was kakistocracy. Kakistocracy is a real word. A kakistocracy is a government run by the least competent of its citizens. How many times did we talk about kakistocracy during the last 4 years? And I haven't even had to use the word. Had not occurred to me until yesterday. So I got to tell you, it's not Thursday. Thankful Thursday has already passed us, but I'm still thankful here on Friday that I'm in a place right now where I've got plenty to talk about. I mean, it ain't no lie. I got plenty to talk about. And the left is still out there. They're doing all they can to disrupt the things that we care about on the right. But the truth of the matter is, the very idea that I have not had to use the vocabulary of the last 4 years to describe the things we're in right now is a clear indication that things are better. I already knew they were. I mean, I didn't need CNN's optimism poll to tell me that things are really up. They are. But it's still amazing when I suddenly realized that something that was a part of the fabric of this show for almost 3.5, 4 years hadn't even been used in like 2 months. And that's just cool. We got a full weekend. There will be some weather coming up on Sunday, so you guys be careful of that, but I think we're going to be all right. There's also some breaking news we're going to watch as the Trump administration is pointing out that right now intel reports that Iran could be weeks away from having a nuclear weapon, and that's never good. So a lot of things to watch for just in the next few days, and we'll keep tabs on it and back here on Monday with you to cover down on the details. All I know is this. The reason why we do what we do is because of y'all. We could get over here and talk on this microphone all day long, but if it wasn't for y'all out there listening, what difference would it make? So we love you. We appreciate you. Blessings on your weekend. And remember, there are indeed more of us than there are of them. God is still very much on his throne. Y'all stay in the fight. We'll see you Monday.